D. It's in the name.
Welcome into the good old-fashioned dislike podcast where dynasties never die and hate is an extreme word, but just barely. This episode is brought to you by Collision Auto Repair Services in Killen, Alabama. If your car's on fire, that's not a good thing. If Mark Sears is on fire, well, things are rolling the right way. But if your car's on fire, put it out as quickly as you can. If you need some help with a new car or fixing the one you got, you can call Collision Auto Repair Services in Killen, Alabama at 256-272-2007. That's 256-272-2007. Fellas, I felt the need that we would just need to get, I know this is a football podcast, and we did our March Madness, and it's coming down to the wire between Will and Blake on who's going to get the jersey. But I felt like with the Crimson Tide breaking through the ceiling, Freed-Hardeman University winning a national championship, that we needed a special episode of the good old-fashioned dislike. What is basketball success, and how does that feel? Wow, kind of crazy. I guess we can start with, it all binds us, right? We're all Freed-Hardeman grads. Freed-Hardeman University in Henderson, Tennessee, won the NAIA National Championship on Tuesday, the last Tuesday in March, whatever that was, in a stunning come-from-behind victory.
Incredible.
At least 67-61 with like under a minute, 45 seconds left. And Freed-Hardeman pulls off the 71-68 victory out in Kansas City.
It was crazy. Like I had to find a way to watch it, and I couldn't believe, what happened, because when it got to like 6 points down, I mean, my negativity level was really high. Blood pressure was right there with it.
Will knows about our negativity around here.
And I was just like, I can't believe this. It had been so close in reach, and I kept thinking I hate basketball, and then all of a sudden, the greatest comeback ever, and I was on top of the world at that moment. So I know Will was a little cooler headed watching it, though.
Well, I mean, who was it that they played, that Freed played?
Like Langston?
Yeah, Langston's coach has to be losing his mind, because, let's be honest here, for just a little bit, Langston gave the game away. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I think what it comes down to is, and of course, Drew was in high school when I was at Mars Hill and coming up through middle school, and Drew just had a team that was way more disciplined than Langston. You have 3 turnovers in the last 40 seconds, wide open steals, then they turn into and ones. And credit to Drew and the team for the effort they gave.
Not giving up. That was key.
The full court press. Why in the world Langston throws it in the deep corner where you can get double teamed, and then your backside guy has every pass to the middle of the court picked off. So, just shout out to them. It was impressive. I know that there for a while, maybe Drew's technical kind of got the team amped up. It looked like a football game there for a little bit, Travis.
Maybe that's why I loved it so much. The first half, you could tell that Langston came in and were being physical, and the refs were just letting it roll. And, I'm sure Coach Stutz at halftime was like, hey, we're going to have to get physical, right back with them, and the technical, all that stuff. And it worked. I don't know that Langston was expecting the good little Christian boys from Freed-Hardeman to play rough and tumble, but that's what we saw, and I posted the clipped up highlights on our TikTok and on Facebook, and one of the first comments was, there was a foul at 19.7 seconds on Freed that they didn't call. And I was like, you must have not watched the game.
Didn't watch the whole game.
Because it was like a ton of fouls that went uncalled. But I guess at the very least, it was both ways to some degree,
Yeah.
You can live with that.
Well, and it's even, and that's the thing is, and I'm sure Langston fans are upset or whatever, but even if that's a foul, and the guy gets 3 free throws, you still turn the ball over 3 times. You had timeouts. To me, it was just poor time management on Langston and just completely undisciplined basketball. But, I guess that's why they play 40 minutes. You win.
The misery of having to, watch those last couple of free throws, knowing you really have to time to do anything.
Those refs should have been over. They should have never went to the line. The game's over. Don't do that to them. I think that Miles Stutz, we saw him at Lads.
Yeah.
He said that Langston called their last timeout quite early before all that went down. So there was no way to call a timeout and calm his guys down, talking about Langston's team. Yeah. And it came out, and, it's educating your guys on situational basketball.
Yeah. Well, in basketball, 0.3 can only be tipped. So you cannot shoot it. The refs, if it is a full shot, there's no possible way it gets off. So it has to be a tip, and you're at 0.2. I mean, and you're down. Were they down 3, or how much were they down at the end of the game?
They were down by 2, so 70-68.
But
okay, yeah. I mean, so still, you can't tip it from 87 feet from one free throw line to the other. So I hated that for the Langston guys, because you play tough and you don't want to go out and win. Then you got to get back on the court, which was hilarious that they had to sweep all the confetti up. And then Freed doesn't even get to celebrate in the confetti.
No,
so,
it's over. It's over, guys. Done. It should have been over.
Terrible way to. But NAIA ball. What can you expect from those refs?
Yeah.
Well, and don't forget, you were a bigger part of that team than what you give yourself credit for, Will. Right? You had a scholarship to Freed for basketball.
I had a basketball scholarship. There are 4 of them on my transcript. The only issue is that it says Freed-Hardeman women's basketball scholarship. Mm-hmm. And so me and several other guys got paid every year to be, I think Pat Summitt started it as the practice squad, and now all your big names. I think South Carolina's crew is called the Highlighters because they wear yellow jerseys. And they actually give them national championship rings if with it, and they pay them. I think they're all on scholarship. So I do have a Freed-Hardeman basketball scholarship. It was just for the women's team. And probably back then, the women's team could have beat the men's team. So they dominated with Coach Neal back when I was there. So I think they made 3 or 4 Final Four runs and then finally won it in 2018. So
the smoothest 3-point shooters I've ever seen. Like the net didn't even move when I watched that national championship game with the girls. So, Will, as we transition over to another team that has our heart, go ahead and start contemplating how you're going to convince us at the end of this thing that Alabama is going to beat the UConn Huskies. Because I know you're Mr. Positivity, and Ben and I both are going to need some coaching up on how they can get this thing done. But I'll be honest, I had, my bracket. I have a bracket that is Bammerville. That's what it's called. It's my most accurate bracket because it is completely lined up with how Alabama's going to win the national championship. And I got 3 out of the 4 Final Four picks correct. I just need that upset win. But nonetheless, the Crimson Tide, right? So last year, Alabama is the overall number 1 seed. Loses in what has become, unfortunate, a bitter tradition of losing in the Sweet 16. That team with Brandon Miller, two first-round picks, Brandon Miller, Noah Clowney, go out to a senior-laden San Diego State University Aztecs in the Sweet 16. This team rolls into the SEC tournament, gets blown out by the Florida Gators, shows up out in Spokane, Washington, along with Auburn and UAB and Samford. Was Samford out there too? I can't remember. Yeah. And wins the first round, which I picked them to do. And then I picked them to bow out in my other brackets, the ones that I thought were more common sense, bow out in the second round. Instead, they beat Grand Canyon, right? And then the easiest route to the Sweet 16 that's ever existed. Alabama's getting all the breaks, of which I reply, sometimes it is better to be lucky than good, especially in March. Mm-hmm. Then you get the North Carolina Tar Heels, right? Mm-hmm. And the bluest of blue bloods, right? And according to other fan bases, the worst number 1 seed. So the 4th best team in the country. And Bama beats them, right? So Will, take us through the emotions there, right, with North Carolina.
Yeah, so I think me being the Mr. Positive, I told y'all, I think in a text, and then after the game was over, I told y'all that if North Carolina wanted to run and gun, it is hard to run and gun with Bama. And of course, we're going to live and die by the three, but I do believe in some ways we've shown in the tournament, like against Grand Canyon, if we don't shoot the ball well, we have the capability to also beat you in other ways. And so the Grand Canyon game, I think, was good for us. I know that a couple of the teams we've played, we have played some older teams. I think that's what Kentucky's problem was, is you got 4 18 and 19-year-olds playing against 23-year-old men. And that's just different. I do think this year we have a more stable, older unit, with Estrada being a fifth-year guy, Sears coming in, Grant Nelson being there, Pringle being there, Reitzel Jr. transferring in. I think it may be our team or our starting lineup only has one person that did not enroll at Alabama as a freshman. So a bunch of transfers. And so I think the Grand Canyon game was great for us to understand, hey, we can win. UConn, the game plan Oats said was leave them wide open. They haven't shot the ball well. And the guy comes out and goes like 3 or 4, and had everybody questioning. And Oates said he went in the huddle and said, guys, all those points are on me. That's my fault. Let's stick with the game plan and see what happens. And, of course, Grant Nelson finally got to play Grant Nelson ball, and I think that helped us out a lot. I thought that if North Carolina would have played us in the half court more, they would have maybe had a lead going into the end of the game, or it wouldn't have been maybe as lopsided. Because I think we beat them more than what the scoreboard says we beat them. And I get into the game, you got a lot of threes going. We missed some free throws there at the end, probably because we thought it didn't really matter, because we were up 7 or, whatever it was. But I think stopping Baycott was huge. It helped that R.J. Davis went 0-9 from 3. That was the only game of the season that he didn't hit a 3.
That does help. That's what I'm hoping for on Saturday, right? Like everybody, every once in a while has a bad night. UConn has not had a bad night in like a year and a half. So
yeah, I know that they've had
all the bad things to happen on Saturday. Ben, what do you think about that North Carolina game? I'll be honest, I was at spring formal and didn't watch any of it until our head football coach made me watch the free throws at the end, which Grant Nelson missed. And I was like, this is why I don't watch the game, but he had a nice block. Man,
he had no legs. He just dominated for, 39 minutes.
Yeah, that was nuts. Just to see him, what he did, some of the moves he made and the plays he made was like, where did that come from? Like just some of the incredible stuff that you saw him do. And I'm thankful he had a really good game because we needed it. So, I don't know. It's wild. I'm like you, super surprised that we got as far as we did. And I'll say this right now while I got a second. This year's been a pretty incredible year so far for basketball for places that I graduated from. So Marcel had a great run. Girls, fell just short. Guys won it all. Then Freed wins it all. I don't think UNA fared quite as well. But then Alabama, Final Four, you can't even be sad about whatever happens after this. We've said that for the last 2 rounds. I think
that's like house money after round 1, baby.
This is great. We're at least in the round of 32. We're at least in the Sweet 16. Hey, we're in the Elite 8. And of course, I love every time that happens. There's a post that says Alabama's the first team that has done this and this, and so who's been in the Sweet 16 and. Then it was and went to the playoffs in football, and then the same thing for the Elite 8. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, you've had a different guy step up every game. That was the Grant Nelson legacy game was against North Carolina. Thank you for making that happen. And then we roll into Clemson, right? It seems like all the wrongs are trying to be made right. through this path. We're taking on ACC, which I think is interesting because that's the one that everybody says is the toughest conference. They've got the most teams in the tournament, blah, 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 blah. And then you get the, most lucky run and all this stuff when I hope the luck continues. But you get Clemson, and it's Jaron Stevenson that steps up, a kid that should be, playing against Mars Hill, like, at that level this year, and should probably be, by all intensive purposes, playing for North Carolina from Chapel Hill. His parents went to North Carolina. He's playing for the Tide. He comes in and hits, I forget how many threes. Of course, Mark Sears hit 6 in a row, right? Something crazy like that. Yeah,
I think Sears hit 5 in a row, and Stevenson had 4 in that little stretch too.
And he's done things. He's shown flashes, but nothing like that.
Oh, yeah.
We were down by 13 against Clemson. Come back and win.
We were trying to watch it in the middle of the awards ceremony, lads, and I'm getting ready to leave, and there's like 3 minutes left on the clock. So Will and I watch it in the hallway, surrounded by a few other people. I'm sure Lindsay was excited that she had to sit there and watch with us. And then, we all screamed in the hallway, and then I ran to the car and went home. But, the cool little side story was what you sent. I guess it was ESPN. I'm not exactly sure who was doing that story and talking about, or CBS or somebody, about how the announcer, Chris Stewart, had so many health issues, and then, gets to call the first Final Four appearance, berth or whatever, and then played that soundbite, and he just does so awesome with that. So I just thought that was cool.
Yeah, and so that leads us, first of all, just talk about the Final Four. Like, that's crazy talk. Alabama becoming the second university college team to have a team play in the college football playoff Final Four, and the basketball Final Four in the same year. Michigan State did it a few years ago, 2015, I believe. And so Alabama returning the favor, and they'll be in Arizona to take on UConn. But, man, something, I'll be honest, I never thought would happen. And once again, I'm negative Nancy in comparison to positive Polly over there, Will Mahan. It was one of those things that, once again, I haven't watched any of it live because I'm scared, just to be honest. I have anxiety. They have to let go of that ball and dribble, whereas in football you can tuck it away and kind of put both hands on it. And so we head to Arizona to take on UConn. But yeah, the Final Four just seemed like a dream. Seemed like it was something out there that we would never get a taste of. I think of the great teams: Latrell Sprewell, Robert Horry, Hollywood Robinson. I watched growing up thinking they were just the best basketball players ever. Beat Shaq, once or twice. Robert Horry goes on to be Big Shot Bob. He's got NBA rings out his ears, but couldn't get past the Sweet 16. 2004, we get to the Elite Eight randomly, it seems like. And March Madness just seems to be random craziness. I guess that's why it's called March Madness.
Yeah, I think there is definitely some people to watch in the Final Four. For those that haven't been keeping up with it, Zach Edey of Purdue. I mean, that's going to be, the 7'4" guy who just came out saying he's taking receipts on every coach that overlooked him. So in the press conference when they won the region, this was the first time he's really said, I'm him, I'm that dude. And I can tell you that Rick Barnes overlooked me, called him out in the press conference. So, he's definitely somebody that has got, some motivation based on what people are saying. I think the fan favorite of the Final Four has either got to be Mark Sears' mom, that gets shown every, minute. And, definitely Sears. And I don't know if a lot of people have heard that the summer after his freshman year at Ohio, he went in and shot 15,000 threes that summer. As he said, I want to be a prolific scorer. So his big thing is elite, this idea of being elite, it's all about hard work. So I think a lot of people have kind of fallen in love with the underdog story with him. Then there's the DJ Burns Jr., the big lefty, baby Shaq of NC State. Going to be a phenomenal battle between him and Edey, because two completely different styles of play there. And they didn't call any fouls on Burns with NC State, and the refs have a man crush on Edey for the whole season. So it's going to be interesting to see who goes there. And then, I mean, UConn, I was listening to Pat McAfee today. They've covered every single game over the past 15 games. They've covered the spread. And so they went on the 30-0 run, which I don't know why in the world the Illinois coach isn't calling timeouts or do something. I don't know what's going on there, but that's unheard of to go 30-0.
I think they've been up by 30 in every game in the tournament at some point.
Yeah, I think that there's some unbelievable stats going.
First in the bubble.
Going there. The other thing that I was reading about was all the teams that UConn's lost 3 games. And the 3 games, one was to Kansas, one was to Seton Hall, and I forgot who the other one was. And the teams that ran it and lived by the 3 were the teams that beat them. So, there is some hope there, I think. Their guards are going to go nuts on Sears. I mean, that's going to be a huge thing. I think it's going to have to be, if we get Reitzel back, I think that's massive for us, because he's shooting over 40% from 3. And then I think probably Pringle, Stevenson, Diabate, some of those dudes have just got to show up. They've got the 7-1 guy. I think, I forgot his name, UConn does, that is just unreal too.
We'll be very acquainted by Saturday night at some point.
So he's going to be really good. But, I mean, the spread right now is 11, and I think Clemson's coach said it really well, is if you're up 15 on Bama, you're really up 7, because they can get back in the game so quickly. I think that what y'all said earlier, we're playing with house money, and UConn has everything to lose. And I think Oats is that guy that's just going to go out there and go, hey, we're going to fling it up there, and we may lose by 40, or we may shock the world. So let's go shock the world. Nobody, and I was telling Ben this today at lunch, when they reseeded the Sweet 16, I think Bama was last. They reseeded the Elite 8, Bama was last.
Yeah.
And they just reseeded the Final Four and put Alabama last again. So I'm like, no one believes in them, so why not? I mean, it's just it's truly set up to me to be the underdog story. And sometimes that just happens. And the way that Sears and Estrada, because they've been tweeting after every game, nobody loves us, nobody cares about us. And it's kind of like what Harbaugh did with Michigan. You got the better team, but everybody's disrespecting you. Well, I truly believe everybody has disrespected Bama, and maybe for good reason. Throughout a lot of the games we played this season, is we could go beat anybody in the country, or we could go lose to anybody in the country.
Well, compared to the last 3 teams, we don't have Nephilim on our team. They've got 3 guys that are massive. And every one of the teams has, and you were like, Edey may be that guy. Well, it's not hard to be that guy when you don't need a ladder to cut the net down. You have to grab the ball and barely jump and dunk. I mean, he's a freak of nature. So I don't really know how do you stop that? I mean, you've got to get him in foul trouble. You've got to try to figure out a way to box him out. But, I mean, to hear Vernon talk the other day at church after that Tennessee game, one of our resident Tennessee fans, I mean, he was how do you do anything with a guy who hooks you, throws you to the ground, and then grabs the ball and dunks it? What do you do about that? And they don't call it. So I think he's going to be tough. NC State, if I heard Mike right today, shouldn't have even been in the tournament. They wouldn't have been in the tournament had they not won
the ACC tournament.
And so they're kind of a Cinderella story. So
five games in 5 days, and then turn around and tearing it up in March Madness.
They were actually saying today that NC State there was rumors floating around that they were going to fire the coach after the ACC tournament.
Yeah, I think I'd heard that. So.
Take them on the run. I also have a question of what's the impossible. How do you overlook Zach Edey? Like, that would take at least a 10-foot ladder, right? You'd have to climb that bad boy. I don't think Barnes is that tall, but nonetheless, I think the mentality is key, right? If Alabama goes in, hey, we're happy to be in the Final Four. It's wonderful to be here, and it's going to be hard because I'm that way, right? We just basically said we're playing with house money. Woohoo! It's happy to be here. We'll take the T-shirt, the hat, but we're not playing. If they show up and they go, what have we got to lose? Let's play out of our minds. Let's play relaxed. Let's shoot the fire out of, no telling what can happen. I mean, obviously, I'm not expecting that, but hey, why not?
The other thing,
like Caitlin Clark, we'll be fine.
No doubt. There was an interesting thing that was said too on you're going in and they're playing at a football stadium. So they said the real question too is UConn has been there, played in a football stadium before. They probably understand the depth, the depth perception of things, but they said it still does really mess with you for a little bit, especially when you throw fans in. So it's like, you do have some of those things and the distractions. And even Caitlin Clark said it today. You mentioned her. The women's tournament, they play a lot of home games. And so, like, their first 2 to 3 rounds are all at the higher seeds home court. And she said, I hated playing in front of the home court because there was so much pressure. And she said the teams that were coming in had no pressure. And she said, I just wanted to get to the Elite Eight and Final Four so that I wasn't in my city doing all that. And I wonder if there's some truth to that for the UConn guys. Like, we're the ones that are supposed to win. And, man, just if you let Bama hang around, keep them around 5 to 10, getting in the second half under 10, who knows what happens. So
I also enjoyed Caitlin Clark's dad yelling at her to shut up as she complained about whatever she was complaining about. Way to go, Dad. Way to go. You give us hope, Dad. You do. Thank you, Clark. So as we close down for the jersey, the 2024 jersey, it has come down to Blake and Will. Blake on an absolute tear. I think he's like 8-1. The first pick that he got wrong was the North Carolina over Alabama, which is just fitting. I mean, that's just glorious, right? Like, ever since that SEC championship for Auburn, it's been pretty rough ever since. But it's come down to you and him and what Purdue does in the Final Four. If Purdue wins, Will Mahan is going to get the 2024 panel of dislike jersey for winning the competition. And if Purdue loses, Blake Holloman will get his second jersey. And then he'll be in an elite club like me, although mine was back-to-back. So,
and it may just be if Purdue does get past NC State, which I do feel like they have a good shot. Right? I thought Tennessee was the game, that was going to be iffy because Burns is such a crucial part of NC State. If he does get in foul trouble, that does become difficult. They've got some shooters. They got some dudes. But I may have to go with a basketball jersey if that happens. Historic Alabama run, jersey to win it all. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be a big Edey fan going into this next weekend.
Yeah, cool.
And hope the refs still have a man crush on him.
Just one more time, right? Just one more time. Bama gets the upset. We'll get, however it works. But, guys, I appreciate you joining. It's been a historic run. It's been wild. I went back and watched the condensed games of the whole tournament thus far just to kind of see the boys get on fire. I don't know that it's going to take one person playing well as the last few games. I think they're all going to have to make plays
out of their mind,
get this thing done. But the crazy thing to me is how many of these teams that Nate Oats and the guys have played in the last 2 years. So you've already played Purdue this year. Mm-hmm. You had a lead. You had a 7-point lead on those guys in the second half. Of course, Edey takes over and wins. If we'd have played Arizona, we played them already at their place. We played UConn last year, lost by 15, I think. yeah, this won't be anything new to them, really, or at least Nate Oats got ties to the Hurley brothers anyways, but we're certainly going to ride that Crimson Tide wave as long as it lasts. And boys, if it comes to an end on Saturday, roll Tide, roll. I mean, what a run it's been. Anything else, guys?
Just roll Tide, man. I hope we can go for one more.
Everybody pray for Ben's blood pressure because
Gonna need it.
It's gonna be rough Saturday night.
Y'all take it easy. We'll talk at you again soon.
All right, see ya.
See ya.